lost control of the House.
I have not lost control.
MAGA Mike Johnson has shut down the House of Representatives. He's sending all of the members home. He's saying it's time to go on an early vacation. This as he's totally lost control of the House of Representatives. 4 MAGA Republicans join forces with the Democrats to put forward a discharge petition that would force a vote for a 3-year extension on the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Certain so-called moderate Republicans who are not all that moderate were trying to propose different solutions in order to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies via discharge petitions. They ended up getting into a fight with each other so they could actually propose nothing. And you had Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries hold his ground and say, that's not what the American people want. They want a clean 3-year extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Meanwhile, MAGA Mike and other MAGA leadership was telling those so-called moderate Republicans that we will absolutely kill any bill, any discharge petition that has any extension at all of the Affordable Care Act subsidies. So what went down yesterday was that those 4 Republicans joined forces with the Democrats. They effectuated the discharge petition, and rather than allow it to ripen now, MAGA Mike calls a vacation. He says, we're all leaving. This way he can avoid a vote on the discharge petition to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies, and he wants to push it until later in January, and this assures that the Affordable Care Act subsidy extension will expire when it expires on December 31st. Folks, this is as cruel as it gets. And it gets even crueler because yesterday MAGA Mike put forward and had his Republican base support another healthcare plan that had nothing to do with extending the Affordable Care Act subsidies. But what it actually did is in Section 202, it limited women's reproductive rights and basically stopped funding for any plans that would provide women's reproductive rights.
Have you lost control of the House?
I have not lost control of the House.
Because
there are look, we have the smallest majority in U.S. history, okay? These are not normal times. There are processes and procedures in the House that are less frequently used when there are larger majorities. And when you have the luxury of having 10 or 15 people who disagree on something, you don't have to deal with it. But when you have a razor-thin margin, as we do, then all the procedures in the book people think are on the table, and that's the difference. So
saying the House leadership brought this on themselves.
When will the vote happen? Will it happen in January?
Everybody stay tuned. We're having conversation.
Will you hold a vote on the discharge?
Bye, guys. We'll catch up with you later.
Breaking news. Mike Johnson has lost control of the House of Representatives. A second discharge petition to force a vote on the Affordable Care Act subsidies has just been reached with 218 signatures. What? Yes, Mike Johnson is losing control of the House of Representatives, and a 218 signature was just gained on Hakeem Jeffries' discharge petition to force a vote on the Affordable Care Act subsidies. What? I thought Mike Johnson said one was not going to happen. Well, it wasn't going to happen, but enough Republicans joined with the Democrats. 4 Republicans just joined. Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, Mike Lawler of New York, Rob Bresnahan of Pennsylvania, and Ryan McKenzie of Pennsylvania joined to get the signatures required to force a discharge petition. They will have to vote on it now. They'll have to wait 7 legislative days. They can try to delay it a little bit, but they're going to have to vote on it. Republican members in the House, along with the Democrats, wanted to be able to vote on this on the floor. Mike Johnson has blocked everything coming to the floor. Mike Johnson has done almost nothing this entire year to help the country except his big, beautiful bill, which is why we're having this problem with the Affordable Care Act and everything else. But here's the deal. They will vote for it. It will be probably before January 15th. Affordable Care Act closes for open enrollment January 15th. It will have to go to the Senate. If it does pass the House of Representatives, it will pass the House. There we will need 13 Republicans to join with the Democrats to pass it in the Senate. It's important that you call your member, both Republican and Democrat. The switchboard number is area 202-224-3121. Tell them to please vote for it and put pressure on them. That's the way it will pass if we put enough pressure on them. Love to hear from my Democrats, my MAGAs, my crazies, my cuckoos, and my burnout light bulbs. But Mike Johnson is losing control. And good old Marge is trying to get him thrown out, too. That's another story.
Speaker of the House Mike Johnson was embarrassed by Republicans once again today when 4 of them signed on to a Democrat discharge petition that had all of the Democrats signed on to it to force a vote on extending the Affordable Care Act subsidies for 3 years. And it's kind of surprising because at least one of these individuals is a stalwart Mike Johnson supporter and has come out and said that they've exhausted all of their opportunities, and House leadership consistently lied to them about allowing a vote on the Affordable Care Act subsidies, which Mike Johnson poo-pooed yesterday and said it wouldn't happen, all because they couldn't offset the subsidies with a tax cut somewhere else. So Representative Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania, Rob Bresnahan from Pennsylvania, and Ryan McKenzie from Pennsylvania all joined together to sign the discharge petition. And then Mike Lawler, a Mike Johnson supporter, a Donald Trump supporter from New York, well, he signed on too, saying that leadership, well, it turned their back on him, that leadership is doing nothing and that he couldn't do anything, and he had to sign the petition. Now, I don't believe that the 4 of them are doing this for any other reason than to try to stay in office. They've all voted against healthcare proposals in the past that would help the American people. They are only doing this to help themselves. But if we get an Affordable Care Act subsidy extension because of it, well, maybe they're not wrong this time, even if they're doing it for self-preservation.
Mike Johnson shuts the House of Representatives down yet again, despite the discharge petition for the ACA to be voted on and perhaps extending the Affordable Health Care Act for an additional 3 years, which would give Americans across this country the ability to afford health insurance for an additional 3 years. But Mike Johnson, so beholden to the tangerine twat waffle, shuts the House of Representatives down yet again just to avoid a vote that he didn't want on the House floor, because the discharge petition, now signed by not only Republicans but Democrats, would have forced the vote on the floor. And Mike Johnson not only didn't want that vote to ever happen, but came out vagrantly and said, we're not going to vote on this. This is not going to happen. Yet Republicans sided against Mike Johnson, brought forward the discharge petition that the Democrats had created, signed it, and was ready to vote on this. And Mike Johnson's only recourse was to shut the House of Representatives down yet again. Now, in case you weren't aware, they shut down the House of Representatives several months back when we had the government shutdown. And it looks like for this last 6 months of this year, the House of Representatives has only been in term or service for about 3 weeks total. And these people have been getting paid the entire time. And Mike Johnson, by shutting down the House and avoiding a vote that he didn't want, he's robbing millions of Americans of their ability to extend their Affordable Health Care Act and allow people to keep their health insurance intact moving forward into the new year.
Well, the House of Representatives is going to go home early because Mike Johnson doesn't want to do an Affordable Care Act vote, and he doesn't want Republicans in town when the e-files drop tomorrow. So Mike Johnson's doing what Mike Johnson does best, and that's running away. He probably doesn't know anything about that, though. But truthfully, after the debacle of a speech last night, after Mike Johnson's leadership failures were opened for the public to view yesterday, Mike Johnson has decided he's had enough of being in Washington, D.C., and he's going to head back to Louisiana, and he put the whole House on recess. But if it's like last time, Mike Johnson's going to stay in Washington, D.C. so he can keep swiping left and right on his phone on a certain account. Republicans do not know how to lead. Republicans do not know how to govern. Republicans only know how to be obstructionists. And when they have a leader in place like Mike Johnson, who doesn't know what the hell they're doing, well, that leader will always cave and run away.
Okay, guys, let's talk about what we just watched, because this is important. MAGA Mike Johnson losing control of the House of Representatives. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. 4 Republicans broke away from their own leadership and joined Democrats to force a vote. That's only happened when leadership has failed. Instead of facing that vote, Mike Johnson shut things down, sent members home, and delayed the process. That's not strength, that's avoidance. Now ask yourself this: why could a speaker shut down the House if everything was fine? You don't do that when you are in control. And here is where the impact comes in, because this isn't just Congress drama. The vote you are trying to block affects Affordable Care Act subsidies. When those subsidies expire or get delayed, people pay more for health insurance or lose coverage entirely. That hits working families first. It affects Black families harder because we are more likely to rely on subsidized health care due to income gaps that already exist in this country. This means parents delaying visits. This means Black women who already face higher maternal health risks losing access to health. So when Mike Johnson shuts down the House to protect his position, the cost doesn't fall on him, it falls on regular people. So let me ask you, does this look like leadership to you? Or does it look like someone who has lost control and is willing to let families suffer to avoid a vote? This is bigger than politics. This is about real lives, real health, and real consequences. Please do well to leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next video.